From the baseball diamond to the boardroom, today we welcome a three-time World Series Major League Baseball coach who now dominates the business world. We talk leadership, motivation, strategy, and his lessons for winning big in business. Expert Connections starts now. From the crack of the bat to the ringing of the closing bell, Trent Clark has coached some of the world's best in both sports and business. Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. There are a lot of parallels between achieving excellence on the field and off the field. Our expert today, Trent Clark, is a celebrated three-time World Series coach turned grow coach, TEDx speaker, and really just a rock star in athlete development and business leadership. Trent, I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Well, Julie, I'm excited to be here. Always good to spend time with you. And I'm thrilled to be here for your audience. This is a lot of fun.
It's a reversal of sorts. Usually you're on the other side of the screen asking the questions. I get to ask you the questions today. You've really had this incredible journey from baseball to business. Before we talk about some of the really cool work that you're doing right now, fill us in for my audience, share your background, tell us about your time in pro sports.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the mention behind the camera. Winner Find a Way is our big podcast, so that's going pretty well and a lot of fun. I have another one called NIL for You, which is awesome. And so for me, it's funny. Like, I love sports. I grew up with them, and collegiate Division I, two-sport athlete to the pros, where I spent 13 years in pro baseball. And then while I was in pro baseball, I started companies. I was just interested in the entrepreneurial world. My dad had started a accounting firm, so that helped because I had this accounting help in the background.
That's a huge help.
Yeah, huge help, right?
Like, I can use your dad's firm sometimes with the startups I work with.
100%. Like, I had a physical education exercise science degree. And so I was all about the health and wellness. And then I'm like, oh, hey, let's start tax deductions and what I'm going to be able to write off and what I cannot write off. And I'm like, Dad, like, how do I do this? So it was good. And he gave me a little starter course in accounting. He let me earn money when I was in college. He was a college professor. So he would let me grade papers. And so I learned a lot because of the answers. I'm checking the answers and I'm like, oh, wow. Look what Jimmy thinks a balance sheet is. That's kind of funny. And so I was learning, almost by osmosis, right? And I think I took one accounting class in college, right? But yeah, as soon as I went into business, man, I was just really excited, Julie, that I could take all these skill sets that I had from pro sports, just, hyper learning and networking with people. You're constantly around people, and teamwork and how you get together in that way and develop that. And you get the best in the world, and you learn really humility, because you think you're pretty good. And then you start seeing who's really good. And you're like, yeah, I'm not that good. Like, this is like, check yourself at the door. And if a team's going to be really good, I do think there's some ego at any level, right? In leadership, and I think that's important. I mean, I think confidence is really important for someone at the top. But I think that when you go into a room full of them, you have to check that ego at the door, be ready to work together. And good teams do that really well. And obviously, going to 3 World Series, I saw a little bit of that about how you do it right. I also saw about how you do it wrong, right? And how one ego can totally just tear up your clubhouse and your organization. And cancer spreads, right? And it's hard when you got challenges inside your teams. And I think we all go through that. So there's a lot of dynamics from sport and business that always just were crossing over for me. And so I wrote a book about it, right? About leading winning teams and how we do that.
Let's talk about that. So, I mean, I think that whether you're leading a sports team and it could even be, for the parents who are watching, looking at these young kids growing up in those developmental years, it could be a sports team, it could be an orchestra, like a band,
Yes.
any kind of teamwork, right? But especially in sports, when you really rely on each other. But whether we're talking about sports or business, teams always seem to have that 1%. There are always those standout stars who really rise above the others. What do you think it is in your experience that really sets someone apart? Is this born? Is this made? At the very core, what sets those one percenters apart?
Wow. I think there's a couple things there. I think one is mindset, right? Like they have a different mindset than everybody else, a very mindset of abundance that they are not going to be limited. I would think on the action standpoint, they the one separator category, which was, the feature of my TEDx talk on the pain exchange, was self-discipline. That really separates people because, we all are got the same 24 hours, right? And people that are using it better tend to just continue to progress and do it well. And they're very self-disciplined. And we all have those moments where we're very self-disciplined and we're tracking for the best thing. And then we also have the thing like, hey, I'm doing bonbons and sitting on my couch and watching Netflix, like I am tired. I need a break. And the challenge is like, hey, when you really need to be doing something and you're choosing the couch and the bonbons and Netflix, right? And that becomes the issue. And the people that are willing to propel themselves without you standing over me, Julie, and go, come on, Trent, you got to do this. You can do it. You got to get up off the couch. Come on. And that's not that shouldn't be your job, and that's not fair for our teammates. So it's probably the biggest differentiator for sure. I love the grit formula, which is talent times effort equals skill. So you get someone like Tom Brady, right, who's this phenomenal world's best GOAT. He played at Michigan, so we appreciate that here in this state. Julie is the national champion this year, the U of M, and so Tom comes in the league and he's like a 6 for a talent out of 10. He's a good quarterback. He's good at college, but they're thinking like, he's got a strong arm, but he doesn't do some other things very well. But his efforts are, a 10 every time. This guy comes, self-disciplined. He brings his best every time. So 6 times, 10 is a 60. And then we go, okay, skill, that's his skill number. So skill times effort again is his number. So 60 times 10 is 600. And you're like, whoa, 600. Like that's a big number. I tell teams, like if you rate your teams and they are not at 500 or more, they should not be executives on your team. They should not be there. And if they're under 200, please don't hire them. like you are going to beat your head against the wall trying to get people to do stuff and they're not going to do it. Like a sub 200 is a real challenge for your organization. And what's cool about Tom Brady is this effort just keeps coming and his tens, and all of a sudden his talent becomes a 7, and then it becomes an 8, and then it becomes a 9, and you're like, whoa, 9 times 10 is 90 times 10 again is 900. Like there's very few 900s running around, and you can count them like Michael Jordan and like LeBron James and like Tom Brady. And it's like these people have got another gear and another level. And probably the biggest challenging thing, Julie, for any of us in leadership, and I saw this directly in baseball, was the 10 talent and 4 effort. Because you go 10 times 4 is 40, 40 times 4 is 160. And you're like going, oh my gosh, that's a sub 200. This is the best I've ever seen at, you name it, marketing, the oboe, writing, and you're like, I want to draft her. She's awesome. We want her on our team. This is so much talent. And then you go, uh-oh, like it's not going to play out. And so we had scouts give players millions of dollars because you're like, oh my gosh, I've never seen talent like this. And they were right. They were exactly right. It's great talent. But without the effort, without the commitment, without the, challenging themselves and taking it to that next level and being able to study film and continuous improvement and learning, man, you don't put effort in those things, like people just pass you. And it's the most frustrating thing because you see it and I'm like, oh my gosh, Julie's the hardest worker I know. And it's like, da, da, da. And then you go, wow, if I could take Diana's talent and Julie's body, be incredible. And you're just like, what can you do? So you get so frustrated with that individual who's so talented. And so, talent's never enough. It's never enough.
And you can't create that in someone who's not willing to put in the work, who's
That's
not
right.
willing to put in that and consistent work too. I love that you use that word consistency. So in your book, Leading Winning Teams, How Teamwork, Motivation, and Strategy Achieve Big League Success, you mention a number of actionable strategies for leaders. Can you share one of these strategies that you have found to be especially effective in your experience?
Yeah, I bridge on the fact, and I literally carry the day on what happens in a day is everything. Like organizing your day and being the best every day is so important. I'm a big fan of the Oak Journal. I mention it in the book, and the Oak Journal is just a tool that helps you organize your day. And here's the thing for me, Julie, is that when I train up companies and I work with organizations, and our firm helps organizations double in 24 months. They double their value in 24 months. Now, sometimes that takes 36. It sometimes takes longer because of getting the right team members, but we are staunch about doing that for teams. And we're used to it, right? Taking the best in the world and becoming world champions. Like we know how to do that. Like we feel like we've cracked the code. And when you think about that, it is a week by week basis. And we could sit in, Julie, and we can go, man, the quarterly goals for your firm and your marketing company, let's do this. And that's awesome. And we do that one day and we have a vision now where we're going. But now we take action every day. And so every week we're monitoring, how did we do each day to get to this week? How did we do last week? Boom, let's go through it. Let's plan this week ahead. And then we do it. We win the days. And as you win the days, you win the weeks. And as you win the weeks, you win the months. And when you win the months, you win the quarters. And when you start winning quarters, you start winning the years. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, we used to be a $4 million firm and now we're 40. Like, yeah, amazing what happens in 12 or 15 years when you're focused on doing the things each day of what's important.
I especially love, I'm going to highlight one of the things you just said because I talk with so many businesses that have a beautiful strategic plan. They
Yes.
have put all the work into creating this document, and then that next crucial step is missed. And they're often left wondering, how did this beautiful plan not work? And you just said it right there. You have to start. You have to actually, day by day by day. And so if you are one of those people listening and you have not started acting on your vision and moving it forward, the best place to start is today. What are you going to do today to move this forward? Trent, you also outline in your book, I really like this part. You outline techniques for creating teams that achieve beyond expectation. So like really pushing forward, like you said, 4 million to 40 million. What is one technique that you think organizations are not utilizing enough?
Yeah, I think they're not. I don't think organizations are typically doing enough on the recruiting front. Probably the biggest thing is we want the right team. And I know, I love the movie Miracle, and they do the tryouts for the 1980 Olympics. And he's like there for like one day and he goes, all right, like I got my team. And they're like, no, no, no. We need to see everybody. He goes, oh, no, no, no. I don't need the best players. I need the right players. And so, if we haven't done a good job of defining what the right players look like, do they share our values? Because the last thing you want, Julie, is me to come into your organization. You think I'm talented and you think I've got energy and effort and I'm going to come in and bring the best impact. And then I don't align with your values. And I'm doing things against the organization's values that aren't against my values. And you're like, oh, this isn't a problem for me. It is a problem for everybody else, and it's like, whoa, we are not doing, I mean, like pro athletes are being under the scope and they are being modified and monitored constantly about what's happening. And what most people don't know is that the scouting at the amateur level is so fractional. And then the scouting at the professional level is actually like 10x because we've already designated who can get to this level and who can play. And now scouts are watching every game. And if you ever go to a pro game, there's that scouting booth kind of behind home plate. And there's 10, 12, 18 people sitting at every game you ever go to of a pro game because every organization's already decided someone thought Julie was good enough to be here. Now I need to know if she's good enough to keep rising to the talent and maybe help my team. And so organizations do a diligent job of trying to find out everything, no stone unturned. And I meet these organizations, like you said, with a fabulous strategy and this great strategic plan. They got it in like gold on the wall. And it's like, hey, who are you getting to come in here and execute this fabulous plan? Like, hey, anyone with a pulse will do it. I'm like, wait, really? Like, no way. That is intricate, tough stuff. You're going to need top engineering and you're going to need top sales personnel. And they're like, wow, that's really hard to find. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, it is. It's very hard to find. But a lot of organizations do it. And are you putting the time and effort into it? So I would say, Julie, when I walk into an organization, a lot of people tell me, oh, we got a great team. I'm like, really? Because you haven't put a lot of effort into it. And you haven't put a lot of time into it. And in my first 5 interviews, people are complaining about 17 teammates. And so, when you're on a great team, people don't complain about teammates because they know they look to the left and they go, man, that's a player. They look to the right and go, wow, I'm surrounded by talent. I got to bring up my game. Because when I'm around Julie Holton, I'm like, oh man, she's good. I got to bring up my game to be around Julie. And so, like, I'm not going to just sit there and whitewash it because I'm going to look bad. I don't want that, you know? And the expectations around Julie Holden are high. And so she sets the bar and everyone else sets the bar high. What are you going to do? You're going to come in and underperform? Those people will never make it. And so when you bring in people who haven't had that kind of experience and are going to go to it, they don't have the mindset for that. You can find that out before you ever hire someone. There are the right questions, but I think that's the biggest challenge. Julie, we're not asking the right questions.
Mm. Trent, I was just talking to someone the other day about how they like reordered, or I guess like recalibrated all of their recruiting questions, all of their first interview questions, because
Yeah.
exactly what you said, they realized after someone was hired, and think about all the work that goes into hiring someone in the first
Yeah.
place, all the time, all the expense, all the training, to then 3 months, they were finding, this organization was finding, a major bank, 3 months in after a hire was when they had their first conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which for this particular organization is a very strong component of
Yeah.
their vision, their mission, and what's
Yeah.
important to them. 3 months in, and suddenly 3 months in, they're learning that some of these new hires are not in alignment. They're not on the
Yeah.
same page. Doesn't make them bad people. Doesn't make,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just makes them not in alignment.
Yeah.
Why would you wait 3 months in?
Yes. No, and I think that's so important. And that's so important. Alignment's a big deal, right? I mean, and it's a great example of not asking the right questions. And I get it. If that's not important to you, that's okay. But we don't need your agreement, but we do need your alignment. So if someone goes, well, I don't agree with that philosophy, like, okay, that's okay for me. But are you willing to get in alignment with that philosophy? Because this is our values. And again, I think this kind of goes back to the sports team, right? Let's go back to the orchestra because I love the orchestra. And I don't need your agreement. I just need your alignment. Well, you know what? About a third into this, like second bar, I really want to just take it away and really just show you my flute skills. And I'm just gonna go off on a tangent. Everyone goes, "But Trent, what are you doing?" Like that's how now you're not coming in at this point. And anyone who comes in off a fractional of a second off, right? All of a sudden it disrupts everything. Like there's no like, oh well, I didn't agree with the person who wrote this music, so I wanted to do it my way. Like nobody cares about your agreement. I don't need your agreement. I need your alignment. This is how we're going to do it. And I see it from sports. I see it from music. I see it from anything you want to do. When you're in leadership and you're in authority, you have to get people in alignment. And I think that doesn't mean you need to be a dictator. That doesn't mean you need to do any of that. It does mean that you need the right players to understand that and communicate that very clearly what the expectations are for people. And I just think we're missing that, right, Julie?
Yeah, Trent, in your book, you also talk about conversations that you've had with these high profile athletes and coaches. So, it's your thought, your experience, and also the learnings that you've gained from these others who are in these high profile positions. What's one strategy or mindset, a common thread that appeared consistently as you talked with other people?
One of the things that I really loved, in the book, there's a couple really big themes that I had interviewed the president of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and man, he was just one of the best interviews I'd ever had. It was amazing. It was, he was very gracious with his time, like over like 2 hours, and he said something so profound. Like he had really scraped. He was a Pittsburgh kid, grew up on the streets, and a single mom, like 12 kids. It was crazy. Like he's just really, really tough and still in the Catholic family. And he was so thoughtful about what he learned as a kid. And he highlighted some key things about being a kid and saying, man, I would just go to my classes at 13, learning my Catholicism and religious class, and, he's like, I had to ride my bike like 14 blocks, and man, all the decisions I had to make. And he's like, I don't even know if our kids have that anymore. Like we, don't go down that street because that's a challenge. Like nothing good's happening down that street. And like I ride by fast, I time the light at that street, right? And so it was all these things, and I just remember growing up like that, thinking that as a kid. And it was profound. And he talked about hustling to get his Boilermaker degree, like kind of certification. So he's when he did, and in a very hard time. He was coming up in that time where he was graduating high school, where pretty down economy, and he had to go and sit every morning at 5:45 in the morning as the union boss would come from breakfast over to the union hall, and he's like, hey, you got any work, you got any work? He did that like over 40 mornings in a row to prove he wanted. And the guy was like, man, the kid, you really want to work, man, come back tonight for a welding class, I'll get you in. I mean, it wasn't once or twice. He had to prove his dependability, and he did that to that man. And so when he got it, he thought, man, whatever I do in this life, I can always come back and be a Boilermaker. And he ends up on, Clinton's staff in the White House, and he's like, now he's the president. Well, he just retired as the president of the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's just an incredible story. But his message of whatever I want, whatever I'm doing, I'm the best I can be at that position right now. And he goes, I remember starting roles, and I would be in the role and I'd be like, wow, like Julie's like the best boss. She's like so good. Like the way she makes it look so easy. I'm never going to be able to do that like her. But he's coachable, he's adaptable, he's responsible, and he listens to you, Julie, and he goes, man, and then you're working with him and you're working with him, and you go, man, this guy's dependable. I can really count on this guy and to do what I've asked him to do. And then, after about 9 months or a year, he's like, man, maybe one day I could do like maybe almost as good as Julie. And I can see it that I'm learning and I'm better at this now because she's helped me and I'm learning. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, hey, Julie's got the next role, and you got to fill her role because you're really good at this and you figured it out. And he's like, I just kept progressing because I did the best I could be the best I could be at the role I'm in. And then it's the only thing I'm judged on. And I can't get that through kids enough. Like employees, like, yeah, I want to be the national director of sales, but you're the worst district sales manager we have. Like, you'd probably be great at the national level, but you got to prove yourself at the district level before you ever get to the regional level and before you do this. Like, you're only being judged on the role you're in right now. And I think people miss that. They're like, we get our eye on the prize and we forget about how important it is to be really good right where we're at. And man, he drove that home. And, the people who really understood that throughout the book, they really understood that well, because as we know, kind of like on that stair step approach, right? As you climb the stairs, it's not like the next stair's hollow. It's filled in. Like you've filled it in and you've learned those skills, and then you go up and then you fill in and then you go up and then you fill in, you go up. So you're getting all these skills of skill step 1, skill step 2, skill step 3, and you're being expert at each of those step levels. And listen, getting the education, they can't take it away. Once you get that expertise, nobody takes it away. So it makes sense to be the best you can be. But it's an easy thing to lose sight of because we're so focused on the future, right? And what we can be and what we hope to become. But it does start every day. Comes back to the day.
Trent, you're not going to need this, but if you ever need a fallback instead of Boilermaker for you, I think you should be my personal hype man. You have got this down.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
right.
you're the PR director of the two of us. I love it. And I am curious though. So, you mentioned kids and obviously your book, we're talking about leaders right now, people growing into their roles, into their positions, leaders, selecting the right people instead of just the best people for the roles. What do you hope though for that younger generation, that generation of future athletes, future pro athletes, they're athletes right now, but the future leaders, what do you hope your book will do to influence these folks?
Yeah, I hope that they understand the responsibility. We have these big iddies in leadership, right? And you say my company's leadership because it's so important, right? We hang our and I like John Wooden's pyramid of success. So I built this pyramid of accountability for leaders, right? And it sits on these two iddies, right? The cornerstones of leadership is humility and integrity, right? And those are two iddies. But when we talk about the baseline of what's the foundation, it's about spirituality. It's about quality. That's so important, right? And I think people overlook that all the time. And I also think they overlook stability. You've got to create that. You got to be in an environment of those things. And if you get those five things right, like that's and you had that right, Julie. So now all of a sudden we got a good foundation. So I can build massively on a great foundation like Julie Holton, because she's got the five and like, let's build up. Now we got gaps in that, like, oh, she's really good, but the quality gets suspect every once in a while. We build high and then, oh, we got that gap in the foundation and the building sinking and, not long, you got to tear it down and reconstruct, right? And so it's a problem. So I want to do that first tier of those big five. And then I want to choose the right team members, the cards, coachability, adaptability, responsibility, dependability. I get those five. Then I get the team right with the big three, right? We want unity with our team, which is really hard to get, right? That's a hard thing when we're all pushing for the same things. We understand our values, so important, right? And as a leader, I want vulnerability. That's a really big deal for me. And then what I think a lot of organizations is they miss visibility amongst everybody. The leaders visible among everybody and seeing that they're interacting and often. And then of course, we move really to those big two top things like diversity, so important. Like we want different opinions on our team, and that's really evident. Ultimately leading to what? Productivity, right? This is the peak. We want productivity. We want to go from 4 million to 40 million. That's going to take a lot of productivity. And that's not going to be easy. But if you miss any of those steps along the way and you got gaps on that, you're gonna get some productivity. Hey, we're doing 10 of the 12 really well, Julie. Great. I think 4 to 8's awesome. 4 to 12, that's good. But if you want to get to 40, you got to do it right. And you got to shore it all up. And I was just speaking at the University of Butler to these young kids coming out. And I think what they don't understand, and you kind of hit on this early, was they are the first round draft choice. Like I just went down to the combine. I'm working down there with the NFL and some stuff going on there. And so impressed with these young kids. But for kids coming out on a career, you are the first round draft choice. They just saw 120 resumes that you alluded to. And out of that, they chose 12 to call back and have a phone interview. And out of that, they brought 6 in to sit down with some leadership. And then they brought the 3 finalists back to meet a lot of the leadership. And then they're going to finalize either on one or maybe have another round with the final 2 to choose their first round draft choice. And like, you just made it through that process that probably cost that company somewhere between $40,000 and $100,000 to choose you. And then the expectations are high. You are going to need to bring your impact. You are going to need to bring commitment, and you are going to have to produce results. And I like to tell a lot of kids, like, you are responsible for your results. Oh, well, I was hoping Julie would do that. She's not responsible for your results. You're responsible for your results. You can't look to the team and go, hey, you think you could finish up my work today? I'm going to cut out on Friday. Like, isn't it your responsibility? You are responsible for your results. So I see so many of it's listen, it's at all generations, but I do feel like there's a little push to a lot of victimhood and finger pointing. It's everybody else's problem. Like no one's coming. No one's coming to save you. You want to have a great career? You are responsible for your results. No one's coming to help you. No one's coming to get you from why I didn't get in the final 12 callbacks out of that 120. What am I going to have to do to be a first round draft choice for somebody? And then, like you said, it's kind of like with that strategic plan. It's a ton of work, right? It's a ton of work to get yourself ready to be positioned for being chosen. And it's a ton of work to get your strategic plan. And when we're done, we're like, oh my gosh, Julie, geez, the plan's done. I'm exhausted. Like, what should we do now? Oh, we just have to go execute it. Oh, you mean the work starts? Like, I just thought we did a ton of work, and we did. But now we got to go do it, right? And so it's hard for kids like, hey, after positioning and doing all the work to be in a position, now you've been selected, first round draft choice. All eyes are on you to create value, to create impact, and produce major results. And if you're not ready for that, you won't stay. And I think it's exact example that 90 days. Someone thinks like, oh, after 90 days, like, hey, I really worked hard the first 30 days and I showed them I could do stuff. Now I'm going to put it in cruise control. There will be a 90-day review. And if 60 days of those 90 weren't great, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a challenge right there that you're going to be faced with right out of the get, because I don't think kids always understand that when they go to work for your marketing firm, this isn't your college, part-time job, your Starbucks barista deal. This is career. This is going to be noted for years of how you've done to gather all that information at your university or in your skill training. And now you're going to go produce these results, and there's a payment and there's a trade of services here. Value of the specialist and the specialty that you have for my payment, whether that's fixing leaky pipes, whether that's roofing my house, whether that's, writing up my strategic plan, whether that's ghostwriting my book, like whatever's happening in all these things, man, these skills are being a value trade, and you got to be prepared for it. And I don't know if kids are being told that early enough to exactly know what they're getting into.
And that's where that phrase that maybe a lot of people love to hate, but that like the real work starts once you get there. You put in,
Yeah.
and you're right, you put in a lot of work to build that plan, to make it onto a team, but that's just the start of it. So you go home, you get that good night's rest, and then you show up ready to work the plan. Trent, we also, like you and I both know that a common thread for success is that we cannot navigate this journey alone. And for you, I know that one of the things that you've done for more than a decade is you are a part of Entrepreneurs Organization. You sit on the board for EO West Michigan. Why EO? Why is it so important to be surrounded by like-minded peers who are part of this journey with you?
Yeah, I met mentors when I was very young. I was a mentor junkie. Julie, I was searching out people that had gone ahead of me and done things that I wanted to do in my life. I got a great piece of advice when I was a kid that said, hey, don't ask people of advice of which haven't done what you want to do. And man, I was like in ninth grade when I got that information. And I've taken that to heart ever since. And so when I first started a couple companies, I was selecting mentors. And needless to say, oddly, these mentors were involved in Entrepreneur Organization and Young Presidents Organization and WPO, World Presidents Organization, which is now YPO Gold. And they were committed entrepreneurs, committed to their craft and committed to giving back to people like me as a young person. So, I thought like, wow, first of all, they were all encouraging me when I bought 1-800 got junk. I was like the 10th franchisee. I owned all of Phoenix there, was building it up. And they're like, you got to join EO. You got to join EO. And I'm like, what's EO? And learning. And I was in my 20s. And it's an organization of entrepreneurs that make $1 million or more in their companies, and they are committed to their business, and they're committed to sustainability and creating value for those people. And I think a couple things about EO that are really special is that only 3.4% of all companies make $1 million or more. We are a small business environment in America. Companies, we set up and we can build a great work environment, start our hair salon. That is a great career for somebody. And you're like, man, this is paying me and I make a livelihood out of this. And it's a hard thing to scale 20 hair salons up and build that thing up over, the margin. And it's not easy. And it's not easy just to do one. And so sometimes it's easier to do 5 than it is to do 1. And that's kind of that 10x is easier than 2x sometimes. And one of the challenges I think that I learned from EO is that when you are making decisions as a leader, I'm always calculating 4 people per each of my employees. So if I have 25 employees, I'm making decisions for 100 because the company that I have, all these people, they pay their mortgages, they pay their kids' college, they pay for their transportation, they pay for food on the table. They gotta provide. And companies that I own have people that come in and work and they provide for their family because they have that skill. And I don't ever discount that they are responsible for not just themselves, but an average of 4. So when we have 100 employees, we're making decisions for 400 leaders. And we can't take that responsibility lightly. And so I feel like EO has just been the absolute best thing for me as a non-business graduate to get involved with fellow entrepreneurs. And it's just that hyper learning right back to pro sports. These people have all been coached up by great mentors themselves. And so I constantly go and get these great nuggets. And we all check our ego at the door for however good or bad your organization and company is doing. And you go in and you learn. And EO's a gym. It's not a spa, right? You got to go in, you got to do the work. And I think a lot of people want to go into organizations and join something and go, oh, this is great. I'd like my nails done. Then I want a pedi, and then I'm gonna get a massage. And you're like, hey, that's not here. Like, you want to come in and be great, you got to do the work on you, right? Again, back to you are responsible for your results. No one else is coming to save you. You're not in the organization, and now that you've joined, we're all gonna come in and write your business plan and help you shape your marketing aspect. And we have people that can help you do that. You'll pay them. Julie, come on in. She can help shape your marketing, right? But it's just not going to be this, hey, give and take and just take. That's not how it works.
All right, spa versus gym. I want to get into that gym. I've got one more question. So, a lot of that work at the gym, as you described it, is happening in the forums. A lot of that, we see publicly. We see a lot of the EO events, the programs where guests are invited in, and some of that shared publicly. But the real work is happening behind the scenes in those private forums that you have within the EO community. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that forum experience is like?
I can tell you about the experience, but I can tell you nothing of what happens inside it because it is 100% confidential. And that is a framework of forum that is so important. This forum is a setup of 8 to 10 business owners who own an organization and they cannot be competitive to one another. So as Julie, you come into a forum, we can't have another marketing firm in that forum because that would be conflicting. And you might not be able to share your full vulnerability of your top 5% or your bottom 5% because you go, oh my gosh, oh, if we got this RFP, it would be game changing for our company. If I'm a marketing firm, I go, what RFP? Maybe I want to get our hat, throw our hat in the ring, right? And so we do not want that. So the forum becomes a 4-hour meeting that is very structured of talking about that top 5 and bottom 5% and addressing the biggest challenges we're facing in business. And we're addressing it as a forum together and lending our best experience shares. Probably one of the most key elements and staples of forum is that you do not shit on people. So I won't shit on you. Oh, you know what you should do, Julie? You should do this with your firm. And you're probably not marketing in the right places. So you should look at these locations, and you should also call my accountant. And we do not do that on anyone. In fact, you're not allowed to. You will be booted from the program if you choose to offer advices and this and that. Now that doesn't mean that no one ever solicits advice, but that typically comes one-on-one outside the meeting. Like, Julie, you're so smart at this. I really need your help in this. Would you be okay giving me some advice on this? And I'd clear the context of non descript advice here on this. So we do that, but it's a dynamic environment where I don't know how many times, and you know how busy we are, Julie, as owners. It's crazy. And I don't know how many times I've gone to this going, oh my gosh, I've got to be out of town in 2 days. I got a sick kid. Like I'm supposed to be picking up another kid. Like I'm have like a family account with Uber picking up children, and I cannot afford to go to this meeting. Yet you don't miss. There's no option to be like missing meetings. Like, these are to be held in high regard and importance. And I go, and I probably don't come with the best attitude. And yet I think every time I've gone like that, it's exactly what I needed. Ground myself, get back to what's important, focused, get some things off my chest that probably I haven't been able to. And I always feel like, man, the time was extremely valuable, and probably more valuable than whatever I could have done in those other 4 hours. And so it's been critical for me and my development as a person, as a husband, as a father, but as a business owner too. And it's probably my people are probably a lot better off because I'm involved there. I think they probably benefit somewhat the most, because I think left to my own accord, I wouldn't be nearly the leader I am because of EO.
Trent, and I do know how busy you are, and so I am extra appreciative of you taking the time to be on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing your thoughts. I will share your links, the link to your book, the link to your TEDx talk, all the links to be able to connect with you. Trent Clark, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Julie.
That is all for this episode of Expert Connections. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out more in both of our leadership and business connections playlists. We'll see you over in the next video.